Welcome to the Man-WithaHat Podcast. These conversations are my best attempt to save the world. They wouldn't exist without a lot of back and forth with artificial intelligence. On the surface, these talks may sound extremely ordinary, but I believe the ideas inside them are simple, unique, and maybe, just maybe, world-fixing. But then, I'm not that bright. You be the judge. Let's get started. Hello, and welcome to Man with a Hat Podcast. Today, I want to share with you a vision. A simple but powerful idea that could reshape our economy, our environment, and even our sense of fairness. It is called the Universal Energy Tax. It's a tool for honesty, simplicity, and transparency. A way to make visible every joule of energy. That's joule, Joule, of energy we use, from mining coal to charging a child's e-bike, and to recycle that tax money back into people's pockets and into making our systems more efficient. So what is a universal energy tax? It's very simple. Every bit of energy we use is taxed at the same rate. It doesn't matter whether it comes from coal, oil, nuclear, solar, or wind. It doesn't matter whether it powers a gigawatt-scale data center or a toaster in your kitchen. As an example and a place to start, I'm going to explain it at a rate we already know well: gasoline taxes. I live in California. Right now in California, taxes on gasoline add up to about 88 cents a gallon. A gallon of gas contains about 33.7 kilowatt hours of energy. That means the effective tax is about 2.6 cents per kilowatt hour. For nearly a century, the gas tax has been one of the most practical and accepted forms of energy-based public revenue. At its core, it operates on a simple principle. Those who use the roads help pay for them. Every gallon of gasoline or diesel purchased contributes a small, predictable amount to a collective fund intended to maintain and improve the shared transportation infrastructure on which our economy depends. In the United States, these revenues are distributed among federal, state, and local transportation funds. They finance road maintenance, bridge repair, highway safety programs, and, depending on the state, transit systems, bike paths, and other transportation-related services. However, over time, the system has revealed important limits. First, it narrowly targets one form of energy use, petroleum fuels, while other major energy consumers, industry, electricity generation, aviation, shipping, and even digital networks, remain outside its scope. Second, as vehicles become more efficient and electric vehicles proliferate, gas taxes revenues decline, even while our need for safe roads, resilient bridges, and public transit investment continues to grow. Third, it is blind to the broader ecological and social consequences of energy use. It measures wear on asphalt, but not wear on the atmosphere. The universal energy tax builds upon the gas tax model, but expands it to reflect the full spectrum of energy flows that sustain modern civilization. Just as the gas tax ties road wear to fuel use, the universal energy tax would tie all forms of energy consumption to their measurable impacts on the shared commons, the air, water, soil, and biological systems that sustain human and planetary life. Under a universal energy tax framework, each kilowatt hour of electricity, each therm of natural gas, each gallon of jet fuel or shipping bunker oil would carry a tiny, transparent contribution proportional to its energy content and carbon or ecological impact. The process would no longer be limited to roads and bridges, but would be directed toward maintaining and restoring the broader commons. Renewable energy infrastructure, soil and water regeneration, ecosystem preservation, community resilience projects, and adaptation to the climate and resource transitions now underway. Where the gas tax built our highways, the universal energy tax would maintain our planetary highway, the energy systems, environmental stability, and biospheric health on which all future mobility, productivity, and prosperity depend. So under a universal energy tax, at a universal rate equal to what we currently pay at the pump, equals about 2.6 cents per kilowatt hour of energy, everywhere for everyone. Why universal? Because the moment you make exceptions, only taxing fossil fuels or only taxing electricity, people game the system. Industries shift emissions around or claim exemptions or build loopholes. But if you tax all energy use, then there's no hiding. The mining company pays tax on the diesel used in its bulldozers. The power plant pays tax on its auxiliary loads. The solar panel factory pays tax on its smelters and furnaces. Even the military pays tax on every jet flight and every convoy. What this does is bring a new kind of transparency. For the first time, the embedded energy in every product and service becomes visible in its cost. That's energy honesty. Think about a lump of coal. Before it even gets to the power plant, it's been mined, hauled by train, sometimes washed or crushed. All of those stages burn energy, and under the universal energy tax, all of that energy is taxed. Now compare that to a solar panel. Yes, making the silicone wafers and the aluminum frame consumes energy, and that's taxed. But once it's on your roof, it generates power for decades with very little additional energy input. This means coal electricity ends up carrying a heavier tax load per kilowatt hour delivered than solar electricity, not because of favoritism, but because the chain of energy waste is longer. And that's the key. Universal energy tax doesn't need to single out coal or oil. Their inefficiency does. Now let's talk about fairness. A universal energy tax would raise a lot of money. If we applied it only to electricity in the U.S., it would raise about $100 billion a year. And if we applied it to all primary energy use, all fuels and electricity together, it would raise about $765 billion a year. That's enough to send every American a dividend check of about $2,000 a year. That's everyone, every man, woman, and child. So for the wealthy who fly private jets and live in big houses, their universal energy payments would be far greater than their dividend. For the poor who use far less energy, the dividend check would more than cover their tax burden. For the lower middle class, it's a sweet spot. Their bills shrink thanks to efficiency upgrades, and they keep a solid dividend. This is how the universal energy tax flips a regressive tax into a progressive policy by cycling the money back to people. But here's where it gets even more interesting. Say it's a 50-by-50 split. 50% of those tax payments go directly back to every person. The other 50% goes to industry and government. We don't just send dividends to households. We also recycle part of the tax back into the energy system itself. Imagine coal plants paying into the tax pool. Half of that money comes right back to them, but it's only if they use it to upgrade their efficiency, or better yet, to pivot into building solar and wind farms. It is up to them, but increasing efficiency is the ruler against the rebate outcomes are measured. Gas companies could use their rebates to reduce methane leaks or invest in storage. Nuclear plants could fund safer fuel cycles or modular reactors. Renewables could use their rebates to improve recycling and grid integration. Even the military, one of the biggest energy consumers, would see billions in rebates, but earmarked for microgrids, solar bases, and resilient storage that reduce reliance on fuel convoys. This turns the universal energy tax into a self-funding transition engine. Every sector pays, and every sector reinvests in becoming more efficient and more resilient. There's another fascinating ripple effect: the structure of corporations themselves. Right now, many huge corporations are vertically integrated. They own the mine, the railroad, the refinery, the power plant, the distribution company. That makes their supply chains opaque. But under the universal energy tax, every energy-using stage is taxed, so the benefit of hiding everything inside one giant company disappears. In fact, it becomes better to break up into smaller units because then each link in the chain can specialize in efficiency. This opens the door for new startups and creative businesses to enter at every stage. Logistics firms that cut fuel use, recyclers that shrink embodied energy, software companies that optimize workflows to save kilowatts. The tax doesn't just level the playing field, it tilts it toward innovation. So let's step back. What happens in a society with a universal energy tax? Socially, we gain fairness and visibility. Everyone pays, but everyone also receives. The rich shoulder their large footprints. The poor gain dividends and upgrades, and the middle benefits from both. Environmentally, fossil fuels lose their false cheapness. Renewables shine, but not by favoritism, but by their lower embedded energy. Efficiency becomes the default. Total energy use declines, and emissions follow. Economically, we raise hundreds of billions every year, creating both a safety net for households and a reinvestment pool for industry. Corporations restructure, startups thrive, and entire new industries of efficiency emerge. The military becomes a pioneer in resilience and distributed power. That's the vision. A universal energy tax, a path to honesty, an efficiency lever favoring fairness and innovation. Every joule counts. Every user pays, and every dollar cycles back into people's hands, into efficiency upgrades, into a cleaner, more resilient system. It's universal, it's simple, and it's fair. I hope this sparks ideas for you, whether you're thinking about how we pay our bills, how we build our future, or how we design a fairer society. And this is just the very beginning of the discussion. In future Man-WithaHat podcasts, we will examine replacing all national, state, and local taxes with a single universal energy tax. How would those funds then be distributed? What would it mean for the smaller, poor nations or peoples? How would or might it be implemented over a 5-year time span? Think simple, think big. What are your thoughts? This has been Man with a Hat Podcast. Thank you so much for listening.